If the sun refuse to shine, I don't mind. I don't mind. If the mountains fell in the sea.
All right, I'm doing a lot of different things here. This is almost like a real gig, so I have to apologize because I'm forgetting to press buttons and pushing the wrong buttons. But hang with me. I am recording this, and when people watch back, they will be able to see. However, I am presently still waiting to make it go public on my Facebook page.
Okay. I'm good. I'm cool.
All right.
It's a cocktail.
Right. Oh, so wait, I know it's going to be here. Come on, patience. I'm practicing patience as a virtue. And,
how's that going for you?
Well, it's not working real well. Oh, there it is. Now it's showing up. It just takes a minute. The internet decides how it's going to work on its own. It doesn't care what I think, what I want. It just does its own thing. Now I'm still waiting for it to sort of let me switch from only me to go public. So okay.
Hey, this is way further than we got earlier.
I got to tell you, I don't know if you ever get a chance to watch. I left it on my Facebook page. The interview I was going to do with Bill McCubbin,
Okay.
and we did the first show we did with him. Okay, I'm going to make it go public now from my phone. Now people can see us. We are live, and let me just. Okay, are we live? Yes. Woohoo! Oh, yay. Man. All right, so I'm going to leave it there so I can see if people join in and have any questions. But welcome, Angela Carole Brown.
Hello.
Okay. All right, so let me finish this story because we started. So this guy, Bill McCubbin, he had played bass with Bobby Darin and Glenn Campbell. We spent 48 minutes trying to make the live stream, and we kept the stream going, right? And people were laughing and just dying it was like a comedy show. So then we finally started it, and we thought we were going, and after 30 minutes somebody said, hey, there's no audio.
Oh my God.
So after an hour and a half, hour and 35 minutes, we got nowhere. And so we had to redo it. Right.
Aww.
So,
there you go.
Anyway, so I hope that everything is going well, and somebody's going to tune in and see that all the effort that we put in today to get here. So, so what I've learned, we've met and we've talked a few times. And one of the coolest conversations I had was when we were doing the thing for Carla Ross out in Las Vegas this last year. And we sat and had a talk at the house for a couple of hours. And that was really fun. The thing that I learned then is there's a whole lot more to you than what you ever get to see on the gigs we do.
Oh, sure.
When we go out and do gigs, you get to know people, but from your gigging working experience. But then when you start looking at, like, when I've been researching, I knew you'd written some books. I kind of follow you. I knew you were a singer, but it isn't until I really now start digging, like I told you this afternoon, I put out the FBI, did a background check on you. And I've to find out that you have all of this other stuff that you do, and especially the yoga teaching thing that you've been doing for 20 years. I mean, so give me a little bit of an overview of what I might find on your website, because I see paintings, I see the books that you've written, I see and hear the music that you have done. And by the way, as people watch back, the song we were playing is something off of one of your albums. So that is, a lot of people would be an artist. Some people would be a singer. Some people would be an author, a book writer, but you do all of it, and you blog, and you do yoga. And I mean, so which part should we start on first? What's other, maybe the last book you wrote, The Bones. Let's start there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So back in late December, I actually released 3 books that I spent approximately 2 years writing. And at a certain point, I just went, I'm putting them all out at the same time. What's the point of trying to stagger them? And 2 of the books were poetry collections, and one of the books is a short story collection. And it was my first time with all of that. I've always been a novelist. So this was brand new territory for me, especially the poetry. And so, yeah, and Bones is one of the poetry collection, and 2 others, and they all came out kind of like a little trilogy. And yeah.
well, that was what, from going on the post you did, it looked like it felt special to you.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, 2017, the year 2017 kind of started the whole avalanche of just me shifting my direction as a writer. 2017 was a very challenging year for my family and me, but also at the same time, I think for the nation. Not to get too much into politics or anything, but we elected a new president that year. And so, my father died that year. I have a younger brother who went on the streets that year. He has a bipolar disorder diagnosis, and that was all going on at the same time as, we were, trying to be around my dad as he was dying. And it was just a really challenging year, and it brought something out in me. And as a writer, I often that's where I go for my sort of therapy as well. I get it out in the writing, but it's usually, some grand fictional story, because I'm a novelist. But this time it just came out in these small little pieces, and just a string of them. And what I found started happening with the Bones collection is that it started to become this juxtaposition of the personal challenges and the national phenomenon, and it all started to do this, in the poetry. Yeah.
Well,
upheaval, that was the theme.
Yeah. So I looked at one of your posts online, and it felt like that. It felt like there was something really personal about all of it. So yeah. I know when I write things, a lot of personal, it's personal to me. That's when the best stuff comes out. But so I'm looking at your website right now, and your first book, well, I'm not sure what order these are as I look on your website. So the kidney journals. Now, I read a little bit about that. You donated a kidney to somebody.
I did.
So what led to that?
Well, I gave a kidney to a young man whose parents were dear friends of mine. Met them at Jack's. Remember Jack's, the jazz club in Glendale?
No.
It was an old, classic haunt that had been there forever, and it just closed a few years ago. Anyway, his parents are music lovers, and met them there, and they became good friends, and then came to find years into this friendship that their young son, who was 19 at the time we did this, so 18, I guess, when this all sort of came out, that he needed a kidney and that they were looking for a living donor. And I just sort of jumped at the opportunity to be tested. And you know, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, it wasn't some grand gesture of courage or altruism or anything like that. I was, at the time this came my way, going through a really serious depression in my life. And this seemed like that kind of selfless service that they talk about, that I felt if I reach out to this, maybe there can be some, I don't know, healing for me as well. So it was kind of a situation that was kind of designed to save two lives, really. But yeah, we did that. It was successful. But in all earnestness, we're now 12 years, almost 12 years since we did it. And for the past 2 years now, this young man actually needs another kidney. Oh. So there you have it. Yeah. So, but yes.
Did you get for yourself the personal growth and healing from it that you had hoped for?
I think I did. I mean, I really did lift myself out of the bog. I should say that. And yeah, I think it really changed my life in a very deep. Well, one thing, I'm the least maternal person on the planet, and I never had children, and I never wanted children, and I don't care for children. But I now feel like the surrogate mom to this young man, and we have developed this really awesome relationship. I mean, he's 30 now, 31, but and we just have this great, very sort of mother-son relationship, and his mother has allowed me the room to play with that. But yeah, it changed me a lot, actually, and I adore him, and he's an extraordinary young man, and he's also a musician, and so there you have it.
Mm. Yeah. Carla did say something. Carla's telling us how. Carla's telling us how to do this.
Of course, ever the producer.
She says if everyone in our homes or your home would turn off their Wi-Fi, we would have better connection.
Oh, I already requested that of my housemates. Hopefully they've done so.
So I'm not aware of your living situation. So you have a few people that are on the internet?
I live with my very best friend, whom I've known for 45 years, and her 2 teenage kids.
Oh, I have a teenager too that her day is spent in a room on a phone or on a computer or something.
Oh yeah. I know it well.
Carla's like, oh boy, you too. She. So anyway, and Troy Dexter is watching. It looks like he tuned in. Okay, and then your other book, is this your first book, The Assassination? Oh no, Trading Fours was your first book. Yeah.
And that is a story of musicians. It's fiction. The whole book takes place in one day, and it follows 4 stories. And it's about music life in LA. You've got the celebrities and the rock stars, and you've got the buskers on the street, and then you've got the guys in the middle, the utility players that do what we've done forever. And those stories are never told. And so this book tells those stories, follows 4 characters and 4 stories.
There is a really large, different circle of people in the whole musician world, right? Yeah. And all can be very successful and make a living. You've got the session guys, the movie guys, the touring guys, and then you've got all of the just utility guys, the guys that just are the guitar players that just show up at every gig, at every bar, and they may never have a hit record or anything, but they just love playing their guitar or their horn or whatever it is. Yeah. And all of us right now are sitting at home giving me the opportunity to do what I'm doing. But
You bet.
but the utility people, and that's interesting that you point that out, because there are hundreds of musicians in this city that are just working guys that you would never know or hear of, and maybe some of the best musicians ever,
Yes.
ever.
Right.
You know, it's, and this came to mind when American Idol aired this year, and Chad Wackerman's daughter was on.
Okay.
You know, and a lot of musicians know Chad, that,
Right.
you know, he's this great drummer, and his daughter was this amazing singer. And when they met Chad, they asked his daughter, "Well, what's your dad do?" "Oh, he's a musician, and he's like standing in the background, hi, you know," and nobody knows who he is,
And he's great.
right? Jazz players and session people know who he is, but
Right.
he's not a public known guy. So
Right.
there's a lot of those kinds of people. So when you write your book, were you thinking of all of those different layers of?
Yes, I was. Yeah. And all of those different layers figure in the novel. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So what were there different characters for each?
Yes. And at a certain point in the story, they intersect, you know, and through music, obviously, but it follows four different stories, and kind of, you know, like you say, the various avenues, the session guys and the movie date guys and the casual guys, and it kind of follows sort of a melange of the music scene in LA.
This could be a great movie.
I think it should be.
We just need to find somebody for you that has all the money to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on. Then this other, the assassination of Gabriel Champion.
Yes, that's a big, giant ass book. I'm surprised anybody ever commits to finishing it. But actually, I think that may be my best written book. And that is also an LA story, and it's also a story of artists, because that's what I know. But it's a pretty dark tale, and it really explores the question of what can we forgive. And so it goes some dark places, but the backdrop is the art world. So there's three main characters. One is a painter, an artist who is of some renown. One is a well-known writer, a best-selling writer, and the other one is a poet who is just sort of, you know, scraping on the fringes. And it's about the relationship between the three of them, and you know, it's a story of violence and redemption. So it gets dark. It also takes place half in LA and half in Paris. So I did a little international thing there too, because I was there a lot at the time I was writing this book.
And as a lot of this, are you drawing again on your own experiences with music and art?
Yeah.
Because you're an artist, and I don't want to not talk about all the rest of the books, but there's so much about you that I want to show people, because we're talking about the book, and now here you are talking about art, which is another aspect of your life where you do all these amazing paintings.
Thank you.
Right? Okay. So while you can talk, I can show, I have 4 of your drunk pictures.
This is what Jeff News calls my alcohol inks. He calls them my drunk pictures. I love that.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to show your drunk pictures, and I'm fascinated though, because they are how do you make they're like watercolor or something, but they have a whole different sort of depth to them. And
thank you.
it is, describe what the process is to make the pictures.
So I'm brand new at this. I've been at this a year only. Last year, do you know Lynn Finelli? She's a wonderful singer.
I know her. I've talked to her, but never met her.
Okay. She's a dear friend. she and her husband, Dave Perlman, took me to an art exhibit last year in Santa Clarita to see a wonderful artist who does alcohol inks called Bonnie Butler. I had never heard of alcohol inks. I didn't know Bonnie, but I'm always up for an art exhibit and some wine. And it blew me away. It turned my head the way nothing has in a very long time. And I remember just going, oh my God, I want to do this. And Bonnie is extraordinary at the alcohol inks. So I started following her on Facebook and Instagram like a crazy stalker, and found out she was doing a demo in town. And so I went to that and I took notes furiously, and I picked her brain and I chatted with her. I was obsessed with this, and I decided I wanted to start dabbling in it myself. And so I did start, and I've been doing it for a year. So I'm really, really new at this. Now I have to say, I'm going to give Carla some credit here. Carla, God bless her heart. She has always been willing to put me on any gig that I am willing and have the balls to do, even if I don't know what the hell I'm doing. We're both kind of crazy that way. And she has given me some amazing opportunities that way. And I remember telling her I was starting to dabble in the alcohol inks. And I'm telling you, it was weeks in. And she goes, hey, I've got this art fair. I could book you on it, and you just demo what you do. And I go, Carla, I'm brand new at this. And she goes, now, honey, you can do it. And, it was still months out, so I could sort of, get better at it. And I better. Anyway, and she put me on that. And I've sold 4 paintings that day. It was crazy. And so she was really kind of a portal for me. I was doing it just for my own reward, but she became this portal for me to go, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm decent enough at it because people were liking it. And so I just kept doing it. And I've sold 34 of these since I started doing this a year ago.
Wow.
So crazy.
The question I have, what is the process in which you use alcohol? Do you drink some first and then?
A little bit of that might be going on. So alcohol ink, it's dyes, and the conduit is isopropyl. So you use the inks with isopropyl, and it's considered a brushless medium. Now you can use brushes, you can do what you want, but traditionally it's a brushless medium. And you pour the inks and you pour the isopropyl and you start to blow it around the canvas. And you can do it with various means. I use a hairdryer. I use an airbrush. Sometimes I just blow through a straw. And, I just do abstracts, but really extraordinary alcohol ink artists out there can create figures brushless, just blowing the ink around and mixing the colors, and landscapes happen and animals happen and flowers happen, and I just do abstracts. But it's really fun because there is a certain amount of control, and then there's a much larger amount of it's out of your control, and I dig that.
So let me because you mentioned abstracts, so you keep leading me on to the next thing. Thank you. Okay, so your paintings now, going into your regular paintings, I kind of want to show those, and let me make them go solo. Okay, so I'm showing some of your abstract paintings. Orca, is that, if I give you an idea of what I'm showing, it's a multicolor thing, and it says ORCH in the middle of it. Oh, it's got a drum. It's like there's a drum in there. There's a piano.
Orchestra surreal.
Okay.
Is it like a cubist kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my little cubist rendition of the orchestra surreal, which is
okay.
An orchestra.
Yeah. So the only way you could see these is if somehow you would have another device. I have like 10 of them in my house. If you had another device that you could then pull up my page, and there's a little bit of delay, but
I can pull up your page. Hold on, I'm going to do that while we chat.
Yeah, do that. Then you can see the pictures and you can maybe
Right.
give me a comment on them as I
Yeah,
get.
absolutely.
And Carla said she poured a glass of wine, and then she's sitting back and watching us have a chat.
Yay.
Okay, so now the next picture I'm going to pull up, which is easy to describe, is a two figures. They look like ghost figures holding hands.
Oh, yes. That's acrylic on canvas, and that was a painting I actually made for a very dear friend of mine. He's one of my dearest friends on the planet. His name is David Bills, and that was just sort of my expression of our friendship.
So then I'm just going to kind of go through some of these other paintings because they're I want, but you also do, and I'm going to show this now, is a vase or a vase, however you want to say it. So do you also do clay and pottery work and then paint them and glaze them?
No. I actually would love to get into firing up some, and potting. I would love to do that. I've never done that. I just periodically paint a vase that already exists.
Okay.
Or a piece of jewelry that already exists, and I'll just, mess with it because that's how my brain works.
Okay. And has my page come up at all yet?
Yeah, but all of a sudden I realized, oh, there you go. I see it. Oh, yeah. Okay, so that is a vase, just a plain old vase, and I painted it. And what it is that's actually a recreation of a Basquiat portrait. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Only heard the name. I've heard the name. I'm not. I would love to know a lot about fine art.
he was he was kind of like the rock and roll god of art. And he died at the age of 27, that magical age.
Was there a movie made about him?
Yes, there was.
I think I saw that movie
with Jeffrey Wright. Yeah. Yes. He's one of my favorite painters anyway. So
okay.
Oh, and this painting.
Yeah. Then the next painting, it looks like an eye or a hurricane or something.
Yeah. That another abstract, and that is actually the cover artwork for Expressionism.
The album of the song we played.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next one I'm going to move into, this reminds me of something that Pablo Picasso would do. And I know you're waiting for a minute for it to come up, but
yes, so I know which one you're talking about.
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Maybe.
But
Pablo Picasso, let's see what I love him.
Yeah, or it looks like something maybe Picasso would do. I mean, ish.
Does it say what the name of it is?
Not. I have to put on glasses. Oh, it says gashes.
Oh, yes. Okay, so interestingly enough, that was one of those crazy little moments where I just said, I've got a vision, and I'm going to close my eyes, and whatever comes out happens. And that was actually inspired by the novel, The Assassination of Gabriel Champion, because one of the lines in the book is about the painter. His strokes were not strokes at all, but gashes in the flesh of this life. And so that painting came from that.
Wow. So I actually am kind of into art, so I'm enjoying looking at these things. And then these figures, and let's see if I can read what that says. I can't read what it says. But it's again.
I think I'm one painting behind you, so I'm not sure which one you're talking about now.
Yeah, there's about a 10-second, 12-second delay. So all I can do is try to describe it, but it kind of looks like I would imagine.
Mother and child.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what it looked like to me is a layer cake.
Awesome.
but isn't that what art's supposed to do? You know,
Absolutely.
you're supposed, you know,
I'm
it's
all over that.
okay. All right. Well, this is fun. Okay. So the next one is obvious. I know what it is. It's, you know, it's like you're meditating in yoga
Oh,
position, some sort of yoga. And that's another part of you that I want to get into a little bit. So in order to move along, because there's so much to talk about, we've already been here 30 minutes.
yeah, baby.
I know, right? So I'm going to go, and then I like this one painting of the lady with her back turned, and she's the background of the painting is red, and it'll show up for you in a few minutes. But I like that
I think I
painting.
know the one you're talking about. Pardon me.
So
Yeah. Okay. I remember I joined a challenge on Facebook. This is maybe 7 years ago. And it's called the 10-minute painting, or the 10-minute. Yeah. And you just had to start painting and come up with something. And not even 10 minutes, like 5 minutes or something like that. Anyway, so that was my 5-minute painting challenge.
You did that in 5 minutes?
Yeah. Just throw stuff together. And of course, the point in it, the lesson in it is learning to let go. Okay, that's the painting.
Okay.
Whether I like it or not. Yeah.
Okay, so more abstract things here is another one. It looks like there's a woman or a body, and then there is a sun, a multicolored sun in the middle of it, like coming out of the solar plexus.
Ah, yes. Yes, that is Gaia. That is the divine feminine. That is Mother Earth. That is the sacred feminine. That is all of that. And that was actually a painting I did for my best friend's birthday, a milestone birthday 10 years ago.
Man, and then I'm going to go and just show a couple more of these. These are two people hugging.
Yeah.
And you know, this is the one thing that I know is really hard, because I heard somebody describe how hard it was to try to emulate Peanuts. You know, the character Charlie Brown, in which it was just a couple of simple lines, but just the smallest line can give a whole different feel. So from that point of view, drawing something like this with just a few simple lines and make it express something that you want to is not easy.
Right.
Did you practice?
That's one of my favorite things. And I've practiced it for years. And like, I think I've come up with like 3 that successfully sort of went, there you go. Yeah. It is difficult to do. Yeah.
So you worked a long time to get to the point where you felt like you could actually accomplish something. I mean, like it was working for you the way you wanted it to.
Like I say, all the hundreds of times I made a stab at it, 3 of them came out in a way that made me go, okay, I can see what that is. And maybe others can see what that is. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just kind of scrolling through some of these pictures, and I know because people are watching, we have people watching. I want them to see the photos, the paintings. And are most of these acrylic, or are you doing oils as well?
They're all acrylics on canvas. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tried to dabble in painting in high school, and I loved oils, but I hate
oils are hard.
Really hard. I struggled with cleaning the brushes though.
Yep.
So
I feel your pain.
Right. So I'm just kind of going through these, and because I want to make sure we get to talking about some of your singing, right? And also the spiritual aspect of your world, which is much larger than anything that we've really talking about. based
Sure.
on my conversation with you and the yoga and that stuff that you do there. Because did you write a book about yoga, or you did a song, you did a CD?
I've made a yoga CD, not DVD, that is actually a class, not just the music, but is actually an instructional class. And then I've made a guided meditation CD.
See, that is what I'm talking about. That's the Angela I want to dig into a little bit.
I know, because that's you. You're very deeply spiritual that way, my friend.
Well, that's why that sort of thing fascinates me as much as anything. And once I get talking to people about that, as you know, I will talk for hours.
Yeah, me too.
And I know you're probably seeing some of these pictures. I'm pulling all your paintings up, the ones that I downloaded anyway. And the one with the moon, I really like the one with the moon.
Oh, thank you.
You know, that looks like something that would work well in my room here that I have, you know, with my fake blue background. So I think I didn't actually download every one of your paintings that you had on your website, but most of them.
Wow.
So I'm kind of scrolling through them a lot because they were really fascinating. And then the one I used on my story, the photo, and that's a set of paintings, though, the hearts paintings. You had two groups that were
broken hearts.
Yeah.
Broken hearts. Yeah.
And that's something I can relate to, broken heart.
Mm-hmm.
Were you thinking that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm getting rid of your paintings now. Now let's talk about your yoga, because you've been doing yoga for how long?
Probably about 25 years. I don't teach yoga, but that's my go-to spiritual practice. I hesitate to call it a physical practice, even though it's very much a physical thing. But I mean, you know, the asana branch of the 8 limbs of yoga is just one of 8 limbs. It's, you know, it's so yoga itself is so very all encompassing of a whole spiritual principle. So yeah, I've been studying that for about 25 years. And I think at one point I may have entertained the fantasy of someday being a yoga instructor. Like I know some of my very dear singer friends are, and I, you know, admire that, but that never happened. As it is, I'm a person who stretches myself way too thin. So I just didn't end up pursuing that. But it's a very deep part of my life.
Well, you know, you said stretches yourself too thin. And then I'm looking at your website and you've got records, you've got recordings and music and all the singing. You've got the eyes, which are the paintings. You've got the words, which are the books. The which is I haven't completely dug into that. That's the whole spiritual thing. Right. But what I all of a sudden wondered, because this is the other thing that I don't know about you, is 25 years. When did you grow up in Los Angeles?
Yes, born and raised here.
And I think I've asked you that before, but I'd forgotten. So you've been singing. What was your first love of? Did you sing first? Did you start painting first? Did you start writing first?
As a painter, I consider myself very peripheral. It is largely for personal reward, and then periodically I'll try to put something out there, you know, for the public, but very peripheral for me. I don't consider myself a skilled painter by any stretch. Singing, I you know, is how I made my living for 25 years. And so that's a great love. The writing, I started first. I was starting on my first novel when I was 17 years old and have been writing ever since. Now, I haven't been published that many years, And you know, I mean, I independently have published all of my books. I've never had a book deal. I've gone through 2 agents. Neither of them was ever successful at getting me a book deal. So this is, in all full disclosure, what you're dealing with here. I'm an independently published writer, but I've written my whole life, and I've written quite a few things.
So if I wanted to buy one of your books, am I able to
Uh-huh.
get it online or from you?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, Amazon.
you can get them on
Everything is
Amazon?
available on Amazon in Kindle form and paperback, and I even finally put some of my books in audiobooks. None of the novels, but the 2 poetry books on audiobooks.
Did you try to read them yourself, or did you have
I did.
You did. Nice. And
Fun.
we talked a little bit about doing voiceovers and stuff. Have you ever done voiceovers or any of that thing?
I've done very little of it. Mostly about 20 years ago, there was a period of time, a concentrated period of time when I was, you know, doing a little bit of it, but I wanted to do so much more of that. I really wanted to invest in that. And I, you know, gave it my shot and didn't really get much more work from, beyond what I had.
You know, my experience is, or what I'm sort of learning is that you can be a musician and have a great voice and singer, but the world of voiceovers is a
It's a special
whole
world.
different world, and
Yeah.
it's hard to break into, just as it can be hard to break into music.
Yeah.
You know, if you got to get to know the right person who just gives you the right gig where all of a sudden you're the voiceover guy. And
Right.
you were saying that the guy was a good friend of yours that passed, was
John LaFontaine. Yeah.
the king of voiceovers.
Yeah. It was amazing.
So when you read your own books, did you find yourself, was it easy to read, or did you have to
No,
redo it a
I think
bunch?
it was pretty easy for me because, well, number one, it was the poetry books.
Oh,
So
okay.
that, I can't imagine someone else reading it because it is so deeply coming from a very, personal life experience place. So I found it easy to do. And, I'm also, a performer. So that helps. I've got, there's a skill set there.
Right. So I do want to point out, though, and Carla mentioned this too, because she's chiming in, that Trading Fours won an award.
Oh, yes, it did. Thanks, Carla.
Yes.
Yeah.
Winner of the 2018 North Street Book Prize in Literary Fiction.
Yes.
Did that had to feel really validating?
It really did. And it was very out of the blue. I mean, I submit my book here, there, and my books here, there, and everywhere. And I usually never get anywhere with them.
Yeah.
Submitting them to, and I don't remember this book prize. And so when I got the email saying, you're a finalist, I went, what is this? And I sort of had to go back in my own notes and remember if that was something I had submitted to. So it came very out of the blue, and then next thing you know, I was, I won the first prize in that category, and it blew me away because I don't win things. That's never been who I am, and I was just tickled. And there was a money prize and everything.
Nice. Woohoo! So, and then I know I'm kind of circling around a little bit, but you've got a easy way to circle around, because as much as all this different stuff is, it actually all ties together in a nice fabric, which is singing, because you did a lot of work. You were doing all of the kind of casuals that a lot of people do, right? They come in, they do the wedding bands. And how many gigs were you doing? Were you doing all those, the weddings and all that sort of thing?
Oh yeah. I was, I did tons of casuals for, like I say, about 25 solid years. I mean, it was exclusively the way I was making my living, and I felt really blessed. And, I mean, at the same time, especially when I was younger, I was looking for record deals and I had visions of, all that stuff. And as I got older, that got less and less important to me. But it built the muscle on me as a musician to do those gigs. It really, really did.
So when you did the records, did that come later or during your career? When did you start doing that?
All throughout. I had two original projects at one point going simultaneously. One was the jazz trio, and that was Ed Zach. I don't know if you know these musicians, but Ed Zach on piano, Don Casper on bass, and Craig Pilo on drums. And they were my trio, and we did 2 albums together. And we, did all the clubs in LA and so forth. And we did the Playboy Jazz Festival.
Nice.
And then I also had a folk project. It was like a sort of a world ethnic folk kind of hybrid guitar trio. And that was Ken Rosser, who's a wonderful multi-stringed instrumentalist, Ross Wright on bass, and Paul Angers on drums, and sometimes Lynn Coulter. I don't know if you know him.
I know Lynn, yeah.
So I had both of those, and we did 2 albums with that group. So I did 2 albums with each group, just over a period of 10 or so years, and then eventually just retired the 2 groups.
Nice. So you have to remember, I only moved to Los Angeles in 2008. And there was a certain group of people that I met when I was first here in 1980 and 81. So there's a lot of people for you that grew up here. There's whole swaths of people that I have no idea who they are.
Sure.
I have a handful of people, and as we've talked about before, Carla. She doesn't necessarily remember, but I met her in like 1980, 81 when I was.
Oh my God.
And that's when I met Lynn Keller, that is friends of us.
Dear, sweet friend, Lynn.
Yeah. So when you talk about those people, I don't know who they are, but I would really like to know, who they're. There's so many different musicians in the Los Angeles area that
you can't possibly know them all.
No,
I've lived here my entire life, and I probably only know a fraction.
But you know what? If I could get to know them all right now, I'd try to figure out a way to interview them.
I love what you're doing. Well, I think this is extraordinary.
It's really fun, and I get to find out lots of things about everybody that I'm talking to. So now we've talked about your books. We've talked about your music. I put both sides now on my Facebook page so people could play it. We played one of the songs we started, which is still playing. So in case anybody didn't hear this.
White collar conservative driving down the street. They're waving their finger at me. They hope my kind will up and die, but I want to wave my free flag high, 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 high. Oh, no, ain't gonna copy you.
There's a little soul in there.
I think that's my favorite track on that album.
Oh man, that's nice. Okay, so we've done everything. Now there's still more. There's still more to you. The FBI says.
I'm sure I've got a file.
Right. The blogging that you do.
Yeah.
And so you do blogging, and then there's also if I'm not mistaken. Because I just pulled out things. You've got digital art, handcrafted dolls. What do you do with the dolls?
Well, there are 2 different eras of my life for doll making. In the early 90s, for about 10 years, I did like sculpted faces and hands and feet, and then sort of I created bodies out of fabric, and sewed all the wardrobe, and I made these really elaborate sort of collectible dolls. And then the second era of doll making, I studied under this amazing artisan, Margot Gravel, whose husband was a bass player that I played with for years. But she's a wonderful artist, wonderful. And I learned paper mache, Day of the Dead dolls, made those with her. And those are amazing.
So,
I mean, that art form is amazing.
Yeah, I didn't pull any of those up. I needed to. And because I'm looking at them right now and they're amazing. So this is what I invite everybody. Let me make sure I get this back up there. I have your website address up on the screen now.
Awesome.
And I want everybody to make sure they can go to your website and look at all of this stuff, your paintings, your dolls. I mean, this is amazing. Have you sold many of these dolls?
I've sold a couple. I didn't put them out there in a very, I don't know. I'm not much of a hustler. So in the years that I did them, I didn't put them out there in that way really so much. But so I have sold a few, but not a lot.
Man.
I've given a lot away as gifts.
Well, that would be one thing. They serve but they're beautiful. I mean, there's so much of your stuff is so good. And so from my perception, I mean, I'm not a collector or anything, but they're anything you would find in any art store in San Francisco. When you go in San Francisco and you walk around, and I do that, I'll walk around to those art galleries and stuff. And this is no different than anything you would find there or in Scottsdale, Arizona, in their little art world. You need somebody to represent you. I think if Carla could probably get that.
I'm terrible at that.
I mean, geez. Okay, so and then we go to back to your guided meditations, your global yoga. Tell me about your sanctuary project.
Oh, okay. This was actually during that year, 2017, the one that was kind of rough on my family. And another outlet that came to me is I decided I wanted to make this little mini film, and it's about 10, 12 minutes long. And I wanted to just go around and ask people that I encountered the simple question, where do you go for your refuge when the world is not making sense? And I just wanted to ask that question and get answers and string it together and make a little documentary. And I did that. It's about 12 minutes long. And I got amazing answers. And I mean, and I wanted to ask people from different walks of life. So I literally have one of the questions was asked of a Buddhist monk. It was asked of a person who is presently incarcerated. We had to do that one over the phone. I mean, every walk of life, I wanted to get that question answered, And where do we go for our sanctuary when the world is not making sense?
Where can I see the documentary short?
On YouTube.
Did you enter it into any kind of festival?
No, I didn't.
Angela.
I suck at that kind of thing.
Hey, Bernie Dressel is calling.
Hi, Bernie.
Hello, Bernie.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm in the middle of this interview. Did you call in to say something?
No, but I guess I was calling to talk to you about technical things and what's going on with the internet, that there's, dropouts and hard to post stuff without it being all fragmented, the video.
Well, you know what? I'm glad that you're doing this because Angela and I'm doing this interview and
Angela Carole Brown.
That's right.
Miss Thingy.
And we have had this all day long. My internet's been going in and out. It's crappy, and we're doing all different ways to try to get this thing to happen tonight.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt the interview, but I was watching a little bit earlier. I was one of the people.
Yeah. Well,
hello, Angela.
How you doing?
Yeah. Well, I'll take your call anytime you call.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, it's great what you're doing. Call me when you're done with the interview. I want to talk to you about the internet, how we can make it better.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. Thanks, Bernie.
And so cool you got Carole on there. So cool.
Yeah, she's great.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
That was fun.
I love him.
Bernie is a hoot.
He's amazing.
Okay, so what I wanted to get to is you finding somebody that will enter your stuff into all of the different places it needs to go. Because you've
I don't think I give, I made that thing and then I just put it on YouTube and went, yeah, I mean, technically it's not great. It's just this very personal expression. So I never seem to think about like, where can I, enter it? Because I always just think like, there's so much better out there. I suck that way. But I make my expressions. I create stuff.
Well, the other thing that you do is you do a blog.
Yeah.
So I know some people that blog and it keeps them solid, but they're busy doing their blogs.
Yeah.
So you are helping Carla do her business. You're an author. You're a painter. You make dolls. You write books. You do yoga. You record music. You make documentaries. And I'm still not finished.
Man of many, master of none. Ever heard that?
Oh my God.
What I feel like.
So I'm looking here. Tell me about your healing arts referrals and all of that sort of stuff. And that whole aspect of you, because this is the spiritual part of you, which is a large part where you devoted to getting inner development and self-awareness and all that sort of stuff. So there is a whole list of things here that on your website that you're referring to. You want to give me
I have this sort of I have my 4 quadrants, as it were, at my website, and one of them is the spiritual development one. And my own spiritual pursuits are in the area of Eastern thought, New Thought, and really just I'm a big proponent of self-examination, of turning inward, self-inquiry, and raising consciousness. And so I'm a big meditator, and I say had because I'm moving away now. So I was a part of this wonderful chant group called Kirtankara. We were together about 3-4 years, and we would go into places and perform this wonderful, beautiful chant music. And that was just very, very transformative experience for us. And that's sort of the area, where I express myself in terms of spiritual seeking and spiritual healing. So since I had that portion of my website dedicated to that, those kind of pursuits as well, I thought, well, I should include a resource list or a referral list, books, CDs, podcasts, whatever, of other people who are also, working in that avenue, working in the area of self-development, of raising consciousness. And, people like Eckhart Tolle and Brene Brown, Michael Beckwith. These are people who are shifting consciousness. And so I just wanted to include a referral list to say, hey, go check out these people. they'll put you on the right track.
I love the website. It is, and to do all of that, I've thought of doing something similar. I've had so many different people that I've learned things from with the books, that all the books that you listed here, and those same kind of people. And I'm glad that you did that, because it gives me a list of them all together, and also the stuff that the Om section
Yeah.
of your website. It's all, I feel like I'm walking into the old Agape Church when they had their bookstore.
Yes.
And you'd walk into that bookstore and you'd smell the incense, or smell the candles and see the books and all that different stuff, and that's sort of how I feel with your website.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
you. I love that.
And then when I get to the soul collage.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the same woman who taught me the paper mache dolls.
Yeah.
Margot Gravel. She was the facilitator of this amazing process called soul collage. She did not invent it. It was created by Sina Frost, who I believe is in San Francisco. But Margot was the teacher that I studied under. And it's literally the process of creating collages, grabbing images from magazines and from, wherever, and creating actual artistic collages. But the idea is that it's an intuitive process. So you grab images, you put them down without forethought, without an idea, without a preconceived notion of what you're trying to create. And what you end up creating does reveal something about your inner self. And so then it becomes this sort of self-study. And then she gets into archetypes and, universal archetypes, Joseph Campbell, Carolyn Meese kind of stuff. And it's just an extraordinary, intuitive process. I would have to say that is probably one of the modalities that I have ever been involved in my life that was probably the most therapeutic, the most giving me the most insights about myself. Really extraordinary process.
That sounds fascinating. I want to try that. And the interesting thing is that I know Reverend Michael, and I asked him a question about something one time, and his answer to me was that there are so many aspects of spiritualism and becoming spiritual, and like the gurus that go and do their meditation thing and are able to do certain things. And
Right.
He said all the different aspects take devotion and time, to just the same as you want to be able to learn to sing a certain style, or sing a different, or speak a different language. And there are so many different aspects of like meditation, and what kind of meditation. And well, if I want to do that kind of that takes a lot of work and practice. And when you're talking about that, I'm thinking, okay, I'd like to try that, but oh man, that would be something else I'd have to spend time. Right?
Right.
Like, oh man,
Yeah.
there's more shit.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now we've been at 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Wow.
Right? You see?
Holy cow.
See how quick?
I'm having fun.
Right? See how quick time goes?
Yeah, it does.
And I want to know how you're feeling now, because when we talked in Las Vegas in November, you were looking forward to your new journey. You're moving to Kansas City. How is it all feeling for you now? Because it's coming next week, right? You're
2 weeks from now, I'll be driving out, and I'm excited, really excited. I have needed an upheaval in my life, because the business that I have made my living in for a very long time really, really just kind of stopped working for me. And I mean, we're in LA. It's just a very ageist town. And, I've aged out of most of the gigs that I used to do. That's just the simple truth. And I'm not taking anything personally or being offended by that. It's been that way forever. This time I'm on the other side of it. when I was coming up, I was taking the place of some old guard who was being aged out of their gig. It's always existed.
Right.
So now I'm in that position, and I was just struggling too hard, and I needed an upheaval, and this opportunity came my way. It's a wonderful town for live music. Of course, this has been in the works for 7 months, and who knew that when the time came, we'd be in the middle of a global pandemic. So it's a little odd making this move and this change while all of this is going on, but throw me a wrench.
Well, as we sat here and talked about the website and all of the different aspects of you, it feels this is going to be a place that will be a culmination, because you've described the home to me and what it's like. And it feels like all of these other parts are kind of coming together, and this will be a place that it will merge and be.
I think so. And I hope so. And I've talked to many people who know the town well, and they've said, oh, that's a good city for you. And that's where you'll really be able to blossom in a way that it's hard to do in LA, because it's so large and so spread out. And there's so many of us all out there doing the same creative thing. So my hope is that I will get a chance to really blossom there.
You will.
Mm.
And especially when we get somebody to do that, enter your documentary into when it wins an Oscar for best short documentary, then I'm going to, and then you'll come like, Jeff, I remember you telling me that. And I'm going to go, yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
All right. So I'm going to thank you for spending some time with me tonight.
Thank you.
This was really cool. Really cool. It's a lot of fun. And, it's nice to know that Bernie called in and validated that it wasn't just us having Jesus. I mean, what was going on today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I have to say, thank you for inviting me to do this. And I love what you're doing. And this is such a wonderful idea. And you're really great at interviewing. And just thank you. This is a great venue.
We were talking a little bit about it, and I think this may not be something that will be for the masses, but what it does for me and you and those who know us, every guest that I have come on has a handful of people that really like them, that will tune in and watch it. And it, especially now, it just feels like it does something. It's good for me. It's good for you. And who cares if I get a gazillion views or not?
Right.
It's really
soul healing in a time of pandemic.
Yes.
God bless you.
Thank you. And best of luck in Kansas City. I'm going to, now that I know all of this stuff about you, I'm going to.
Are you against me?
No, I'm going to keep tuning in, and I'm going to keep saying, well, do you got that book deal yet? Do you got the publisher yet? Do you got the guys selling the movie? I'm going to be, I'm going to be
me in the ass. I need that.
I'm going to hold that vision that you will be awarded something.
Thank you
for all of this, because this is great work. Everybody, please to go look at your website at angelacarolebrown.com and look at all of the stuff she has done. It's brilliant. It's magnificent. And it deserves to be everywhere.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, based on that, I want to play another song that you did. Is there something else we should play? I have both sides now. Play on my on my Facebook page. Is there something else we should play from this? Yeah, we want.
Can you pick?
I'm going to pick. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm going to say. Did I play this one yet? No. Yeah. Let's see what this sounds like.
Ooh, Tom Waits? Is that the Tom Waits?
Between the Bars.
Oh, Between the Bars, Elliott Smith.
Drink up, baby, stay up all night. the things you could do. You won't, but you might. The potential you bring, but you'll never see. The promises you'll only make. Drink up with me now and forget all about the pressure of days. Do what I say and I'll make you okay. Drive them away, the images stuck in your head.